welcome to the garden of Christiane Torres here on Bodle Street in Westchester. Christiane?
Hello, yeah, welcome. We got very lucky here with this little oasis that we have here. We have a big vegetable garden in the back and lots of flower beds, and I'm starting a pollinator garden all the way in the back, and we do have chickens also, if you can see them in the background somewhere. They're digging for worms in the back, in the shade. They like it there better.
Just passing the front of your house, I noticed that there were lots of bumblebees, and the oasis here, this beautiful garden in your in the back of your home. I was wondering if you know how many species of flowers are here, because it's just bursting with color.
I add more and more every year. I think when we arrived here, it was mostly azaleas and not a lot of flower beds. It was just pretty much lawn, a vegetable garden, and azaleas. My mom counted once, it's like over 40 azalea bushes that are all established. But I added now more and more flower beds, and I'm trying to integrate pollinator plants. And so there was one, the Phloxtiana, that is by far the most visited by pollinators. So I have planted that around the garden everywhere now. And I really try to incorporate more and more of that to just make it more sustainable. And the bee population actually has really gone down. I can see it in my yard. And so the folks at Mount QS said, like, they promised me that if I plant it, they will come. So I hope they will come back this year.
And I understand you're all organic here, but that with all this rich soil that I can see, is this coming from your compost bin, or do you use compost from your chickens?
Yeah, both. So I started with just a normal compost when we came here. We didn't have chickens yet. And I had several different compost bins, like the big tumblers and the bin, and it was just leaves, mainly leaves from the fall.
Wow.
And when we had then the chickens, that really created much more compost, and I really take straw now, mostly as their bedding, because with the poop it makes a really good compost, and really quickly actually. I mostly also mulch just with compost, and I don't use any other mulch. This year I did start to go down to Kennett Square to get some mushroom soil. I hope that has less weeds and a little bit less mulch, and I'm trying that this year for the first time in my vegetable garden. So that should be a little bit more sterile than your compost from last year with your tomato seeds in it.
Yeah, so you don't want a bunch of tomatoes growing up in your pile.
So yeah, but that makes a big difference. Like the soil is getting better and better every year. I can really feel it.
Yes, definitely. Well, do you mind if we take a look at your food garden first, and then maybe your compost bin?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go check it out. All right, so here we are. You have your food garden over here, and what's this pile?
This big mess?
Yeah.
So this is my compost here. It's now just big piles because typically you want it to really cook in there. And I have so much manure now from my chickens that this was easier than doing like the big black plastic tumblers that a lot of people have for their smaller garden. And so yeah, that works out really nicely. You see there are a lot of like ornamental grasses that I stole from neighbors that was cut up. You see straw from the chickens, and so anything and everything that I have here.
Now, I have a silly question. I used to put water in my compost, extra water that I had in buckets. Do you ever do that if you have a little extra water? Or?
Yes, you have to keep it moist.
Right.
That's a big thing. A lot of people complain, they put their leaves in and then they complain that there are a lot of ants. Ants is a true sign of not enough moisture.
Right.
And then it cannot cook. It cannot cook well. What I do is I water it when I establish it, when I put it all together in layers, and then also I put like some sticks in between different layers
to aerate.
And then I aerate. So I have this pokey. I have a little pokey thing here. It's actually meant for aerating your compost. So I can just put it in here, and then I just like wiggle it around a little bit, and that aerates the you see all that almost compost, not quite. So and then you see here, right? I just prepared this bed here. You see all this nice rich soil. I just prepared that for corn. My son wanted corn this year, so let's try that.
Will you tell us a little bit about some of the crops that you're growing in there?
Yeah, so first of all, typically I grow for myself, and mostly from seeds. This year I added a couple new varieties, so I bought seeds for that. And then because the Westchester University is closed for COVID,
I got some seedlings from what would have otherwise gone into the Westchester University garden. So I'm growing it here, and then we bring it to the food bank and to the Westchester University cupboard to help some of the students there. So part of it is for my own use, part of it for them. And we are growing kale, broccoli, onions, garlic for the first time this year. It's growing up really nicely. Peas, I have potatoes. Actually, I haven't put them in. Those were just like left over that I didn't find last summer, so they came up nicely. I'm like, all right, let's go. And many tomatoes. And then squash, zucchini, beans, and I have an asparagus bed.
Oh, okay.
And the big plant you see here with the yellow flowers, that's my kale from last year. It's a Russian kale. And I keep that up, a little bit supported still, because I'm waiting for the seeds to ripen fully so that I have more. It was like such a big plant. I'm like, all right, this needs to be preserved. For
It almost looks like a small tree.
So that has grown through all winter, and I was harvesting through the winter, and my chickens will get the rest of it now.
Tell us about garlic. Now, I know that not everyone knows how to grow garlic. It takes some time, right?
Yes. So my husband actually wanted to try it, and so I had him go for it. And we put it in probably around August, September, something like that. Mm-hmm. And you see how big it is there. And once it starts turning yellow, it should be in the summer, around July or so, then you can harvest it. You dry it and then you harvest it. Side note, we imported one from France last summer, and someone gave us one from Italy, bringing it.
Oh wow, it's international garlic.
All right, want to move over to the strawberries, right?
Okay, yeah. All right, so what are we going on with this hay bale here?
So a little after Thanksgiving, I contacted a couple of neighbors if they still needed their hay bales or straw bales and pumpkins from their decoration, the fall decoration, and I know everyone starts their Christmas decoration right after Thanksgiving. So I picked up a lot of straw bales and pumpkins for my chickens, and typically I use the straw bales for bedding, but I hadn't used these up yet in the spring. And I also had started building a new raised bed here and the second one over here. And so I didn't have soil. I actually listened to a podcast about straw bale gardening. And so there are a lot of people who do that. So they take these straw bales and you condition them a couple, like let's say 2 or 3 weeks before you start planting. You're conditioning them with some nitrogen fertilizer. It could be blood meal or some other form. And so it starts composting and making soil already, so that when you're ready to plant the hay bale, and you see it's already a little bit deteriorated, kind of has a good medium for the roots to grow in. And they say these straw bales are really good, for example, for people that don't have good soil or that have only very limited space. You can grow really vertically, and you can see you can put,
this
like,
would be great for like an urban setting.
Varieties.
Yeah.
So, and I have seen people. There's a guy. He does all his tomatoes in a driveway. So that's his only sunny spot. So he puts them up on the driveway and grows it like that.
Wow.
And then these straw bales, they actually last about 3 years. So the first year you can do like bigger crops in it. Next year it has broken down more. You can put potatoes in there, or you can put carrots even in there.
Okay.
And then the year after you can use it as potting soil, or it's like really broken down as really
Like
nice
compost,
soil.
yeah.
So for me, I will just leave it in here, and that will be the soil for my garden bed.
I love this idea. So Christiane is not only a gardener, but she is a scientist.
No.
Tell us about this experiment that you have going on here.
I'm just trying to find easy ways to do the gardening. So this year I learned about winter sowing. And what it does is you have a milk jug and you put soil in it, and then you put seeds in it, and you put it outside in a partial shady spot, and you just leave it there, and then it starts growing at whenever nature is ready. But it is typically earlier than it would be out in the ground, because that milk jug acts kind of like a greenhouse. I read that you can do that also with tomatoes. And so what I did here, I have the same variety. I have like yellow tomatoes, golden globe here, and then persimmon tomatoes here. The little one was grown in a milk jug, and the big one was grown under grow lights in the basement. And I planted the seeds on the same day, and I took them both out in the garden at the same time. And to be expected, the one from winter sowing is a little bit smaller because it just starts growing later because the air temperature has to warm up first. But I never had to do anything. I didn't even have to water it. I mean, I planted it in mid-March, the seeds, and beginning of May, I took it out, and between planting the seeds and taking it out to plant it, I didn't have to do anything.
Wow.
So even though these are smaller, I would probably still go next year with the winter sowing. I just love it so much because it's so much easier. So let's see, it's my experiment, but so far so good. I mean, even if I get tomatoes 2 weeks later, I think I would still go with the winter sowing again.
Well, excellent. Looks like they're
Life is complicated. This is easy.
They look like they're following the curve they should be, right about where they should be.
They look healthy, so all good.